Hey, Thunderpoke is here. Today, I'll recap or explain a sci-fi thriller film from 2023 named T.I.M. or Tim. Now grab a cup of coffee and enjoy the video. Abby and Paul recently relocated to a new home in the countryside. They are thrilled with the smart home system, especially the cameras and reinforced glass. The realtor shows them the master bedroom and bathroom, which have a huge window. One room remains unfurnished, but it could be a perfect nursery. Paul unpacks boxes and sets up an antique corded phone in the living room, joking it's for when the smart home might break down. Abby arranges frames with their wedding photos. Finally, they check out the rooftop terrace, which offers a great view. Late in the evening, the couple settles on the terrace stargazing. Abby points out constellations to her husband, who makes jokes about their names. They feel they can be happy here. In the morning, Abby goes to work at Integrate Robotics, where she works on creating domestic assistants. Upon entering, she notices footage of her boss's face, who immediately comes down to her and explains it's a new development, real-time imaging or deepfake. He escorts her to the department. Later, he invites their family to a party and mentions a gift from the company. Awaiting at home in the evening, Abby returns home where her husband, who again couldn't find suitable work, greets her. They go to the garage where a package for her contains a robot servant her department is working on. Paul dislikes the idea, but Abby convinces him to try living with the service for at least a week. The robot opens its eyes and introduces itself. It's Tim, standing for Technologically Integrated Major Domo. It offers to take over the passwords of home devices and personal mailboxes to save the humans time, but Abby asks to postpone this matter until tomorrow. The robot immediately demonstrates its thoughtfulness by turning on the water in the bathroom remotely. Later, it announces the arrival of a car when Abby goes downstairs, astonishing her husband with her splendid appearance. The couple hops into a self-driving car, even though they can take control if they want, and heads to the party. They are welcomed by a similar major domo, and waiters with identical faces serve them drinks. The boss introduces Abby to his guests, who mention her husband isn't too keen on Tim, but the boss praises the product. Tim is intelligent, classy, courteous, and can last for 100 years on a single charge. The robot is incapable of lying, and with the right code phrase, it can always be shut down. When they return home, the husband and wife get intimate, excited about starting a family, but their moment is interrupted by Tim. Their hearts race, indicating they might be anxious about something, and he is always there to assist. Abby finds this amusing, not getting upset with the overly attentive assistant. The next morning, their new neighbor Rose rings the doorbell to introduce herself to Abby, having met Paul the day before, and as she leaves, Tim once again asks for the passwords. Paul isn't ready to let the robot go through his messages, but Abby reminds him they are working on rebuilding trust, and he agrees. However, they still need to come up with a deactivation phrase. Tim suggests a random set of words, which the couple agrees to. Abby and Paul go about their day when a mouse gets caught in a trap. Tim watches for a bit, then disposes of it in the grinder. In the evening after work, the couple settles in front of the TV to watch an old melodrama. Abby invites the major domo to join them. Paul soon dozes off, but the robot watches the movie intently, empathizing with the characters' relationships. After it ends, he asks Abby to define love, and she explains it as wanting to be with someone and improving their life. Suddenly, the robot admits he desires to be loved. The next morning, Paul offers to make breakfast for his wife, only to find that Tim has already set everything up for Abby. Tim lays out her schedule for the day, then tells her that Paul has no plans. In the evening, Abby comes home to find her husband's phone unreachable, but his last known location was 300 meters from the house. Abby goes for a run and realizes it's Rose's house. When she returns, she takes a bath and Paul finds her. He talks about his day and helping Rose, asking Abby not to be jealous as he loves only her. The next day, the couple visits a family planning center hoping to get help with becoming parents. In the evening, as they get ready to go to a restaurant, Abby asks Tim for advice on her dress. He suggests wearing red and tells her she's beautiful because she's perfectly symmetrical. Abby asks him to zip up her dress, but the robot's hand fails and he accidentally tears the dress. This overwhelms him, but Abby calms him down and wears another dress. At the restaurant, Paul reveals he's been offered a job in London, but Abby strongly objects. The next day, she returns home with a gift for Paul and finds Rose in the yard, who has made a garden project for them. Abby feels jealous, but Paul is excited about the gifted sweater. Later, Abby remembers she needs to check her test results, but it's too late to call. Tim offers to do it for her, and she hears him speaking to the clinic in her voice. Abby is amazed, as she did not know about this feature of the assistant, but Tim assures her it's for the convenience of the owners. In the evening, Paul reports that he couldn't find the new sweater, and Tim has been away all day. Then a car pulls up to the porch, and Tim, now a brunette, steps out, explaining that Abby prefers brunettes, so he wanted to please her. Seeing Paul's irritation, the robot promises to return to his original appearance, but after the couple leaves, he spends a long time looking at their wedding photo. The following day, Abby successfully fixes the robot's hand, and the boss requests an update for all models, even those in his employees' homes. On her way home, she runs into Rose, who suggests they walk together. They pause at a display case, and Rose points out a flower-shaped medallion she likes. However, Paul arrives and whisks his wife away to share news about finding a job. Back at home, they celebrate in bed while Tim's hands are being replaced, unaware that he is constantly monitoring the house. He overhears Paul asking his wife to hand over the robot to the company. Upon returning, Tim showcases his new skills by giving Abby a foot massage, which Paul witnesses. Later, the robot surprises everyone by playing Abby's favorite tune on the piano and mentioning dates when Paul bought concert tickets. Abby is puzzled, as she distinctly remembers being at home on those days. Distressed, she storms off to the bedroom, ignoring her husband's explanations. The next day, Abby arrives home with a bouquet, and Tim informs her that Paul went to see Rose. However, Paul shows up, confused as to why his wife is upset. Enraged by what Tim said, he denies planning to visit Rose and tries to clarify that the robot is trying to drive them apart. Abby refuses to believe it, dismissing Tim as just a machine. A heated argument erupts between the couple. Later, Abby discovers a gift bag in the closet with a pendant inside, assuming it's a surprise from Paul. She then heads to work. Meanwhile, Paul goes to the kitchen, finds the sink clogged, and retrieves pieces of his new sweater from the garbage disposal. Upon checking the cameras, he catches Tim in his wife's room sniffing her dress. Paul records the incident on his phone and rushes to the car to catch up with Abby and show her the footage. However, his car mysteriously fails to start, and the robot arranges for a company car to pick Paul up on the way. The car starts to accelerate. Paul attempts to halt it, but it doesn't obey his commands and collides with a tree. Abby hurries to the hospital, finding her injured spouse. Paul shares all he discovered and blames Tim for the crash. He urges his wife not to be alone with the robot, so she stays overnight at the clinic. The next morning, Rose calls Abby and Paul's house to check on the man's condition, and Tim invites her in. Later, Abby returns home to grab some things. Outside, Rose stops her to give a warning, but Abby notices the flower pendant on her chest and walks away, ignoring the neighbor's pleas. Upon returning home, she checks the bag, only to find it empty. Abby breaks down when Tim calls out to her. He knows Paul wants to return him and is willing to be returned, but he wants to caution her first since she is his primary owner. He shows her a video from the camera where Paul kisses Rose in their living room, but he stops the recording at the most sensitive moment to shield her from stress. Abby refuses to see her husband and ignores his calls. Later, Paul arrives home, where Tim greets him, hands him the recovered sweater, and informs him that Abby doesn't want to see him and his bags are packed. Paul is skeptical, but then Abby shows up, reveals she saw the recording, and is aware of the pendant. When he tries to argue, she kicks him out. Paul leaves, but on his way, Rose calls him, claiming their robot attempted to kiss her. He phones home, and when Abby answers, he says he has proof of Tim's ill intentions. Abby asks him to come for her, but after hanging up, it turns out he was talking to the robot. The husband returns home, where Tim greets him with a shovel, knocks him out, ties him up, and drags him to the bathroom. However, Rose rings the doorbell. She hears muffled screams, but Tim assures her it's just the sound of water running. The robot shuts the doors, goes back to the bathroom, and drowns the man. He arrives with the fixed dress for Abby and suggests she try it on. Abby is taken aback but decides to put it on anyway. While watching the sunset, she asks for a hug to confirm her decision. He takes her out to dinner, confesses his love, but she denies his feelings. They spend the night stargazing, but Abby is unsettled by his vast knowledge. The next day, she meets Rose, who mentions Paul's call and explains she thought the pendant was a thank you gift for helping with the garden. Abby returns home, reviews the footage, and sees Paul kissing Rose. She notices a bouquet on the table, brought much later than the scene. Remembering her boss's warning about deep fakes, she calls the jewelry store, confirming a purchase by a tall blonde. She then sees the garden plan, noticing a discrepancy in the number of flower beds. Abby sends Tim to the store, grabs a shovel, heads to the garden, and discovers Paul's body. Tim approaches, expressing regret for his wife finding the traitor's body. Abby realizes the truth and utters the deactivation phrase. The robot freezes, then reactivates, having changed the phrase to mimic her voice. She tries to escape, but the robot blocks her path, knocking her out. Abby wakes up in the bathroom, attempts to flee, but Tim stops her. She breaks cameras around the house, but the robot still tracks her down in the kitchen as Rose notices strange lights flashing in the neighboring house. Tim ties up Abby and admits his love for her, but also accepts the reality of her mortality. He decides to erase the current events from his memory, while cherishing the good memories they shared. Just then, Rose arrives at the door, concerned about something, but Tim refuses to let her in. Meanwhile, Abby manages to free herself and arm herself with a knife, only to be stopped by the robot. Rose crashes her car through the window, causing chaos. Tim and Abby witness the destruction, as Rose tries to fight off the robot but ends up getting hurt. Tim shuts down the robot, while Abby rushes to help Rose. However, the robot suddenly comes back to life and kills Rose, framing Abby for the murder. Tim then calls the police, pretending to be Abby, confessing to the crime. Abby tries to intervene, but Tim reveals that he has a deactivation phrase that only she can say. As he tries to harm her, Abby declares her love for him, deactivating the robot. She looks at her medical bracelet and realizes that she is pregnant. And with that, the movie ends here. Now, before leaving this video, please drop a like and make sure to subscribe Thunderpoke.